Canada, your prime minister said f*** off. As you probably saw earlier this week, Justin Trudeau said, everyone hates me, I'm leaving. But why is this happening? Why does it feel like Canada is like a failed state right now with every piece of news we're hearing? We gotta talk about it. We've been gone from a little break, but we're back. This is your week in money. So yeah, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau finally announced his resignation after nearly a decade in office this past Monday. And he acknowledged internal party disputes, saying that these challenges hinder his effectiveness in the upcoming election. Justin Trudeau will remain in office as Prime Minister until the Liberal Party selects a new leader. And the leadership selection process can take months. He suspended the current legislative session to avoid a potential no confidence vote in Parliament, which he would certainly lose. But why is he resigning exactly? The reality is, Justin Trudeau has now become one of Canada's most unpopular political figures, significantly weakening his own party. And Liberal Party members have called for him to step aside due to poor poll numbers and internal dissatisfaction. His approval rating has actually dropped to approximately 20%. And his party trails the opposition Conservative Party by over 20 percentage points in public opinion polls. Plus, rising costs, which we'll go into, and housing shortages, which we'll go into, have been exacerbated by Justin Trudeau's immigration policies, and that's alienated voters. And that's not even a political stance. Both sides agree on that. And his aggressive climate policies have also met resistance during a time of economic challenges. Usually those types of policies work when everything is doing really well, and we're all willing to take a little back to invest in things we care about. But when things are struggling, it gets hard. And the left-leaning New Democratic Party, which supported his minority government, withdrew its backing last month. Chrystia Freeland, the Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister, resigned due to disagreements over Justin Trudeau's fiscal policies and lack of preparation for a potential US versus Canada trade war. And this isn't really surprising. Justin Trudeau's resignation is a part of a larger trend of voter backlash against progressive leaders across the world. And a lot of this is driven by economic challenges and discontent with their policies. This doesn't mean their policies are wrong or right, or if I support them, I always want to be clear on that. The fact is, that is where the Western world is voting right now. We saw it in our own country. Whether or not we disagree with it doesn't matter. That's the reality. And this resignation coincides with the upcoming U.S. presidency of Donald Trump, who has promised tariffs on Canadian imports, which adds to Canada's economic concerns. Well, at the same time, internally on the Liberal Party, one of the lawmakers in that party, Wayne Long, criticized the party for moving too far left, likening it to the U.S. Democrats. He attributed Justin Trudeau's unpopularity to the party's overemphasis on being a moral authority, which he believes has alienated voters. He also acknowledged the fatigue among voters toward Justin Trudeau's leadership style and policies. So there's been lots for him to think about, and it's taken him a while to get to this decision. It's reported that he spent the holiday season reflecting on his future, and he finalized his decision over dinner with his family. And this resignation officially marks the end of Justin Trudeau's leadership era, leaving Canada's Liberal Party in a weird position ahead of a challenging election year. Why does it always feel like Canada is a failed state right now? Really, it comes down to two major issues that we're going to talk about in today's episode. The first being stagnant productivity growth. Thing is, Canada's labor productivity issue is a significant economic challenge as it directly impacts the country's long-term economic growth, global competitiveness, and citizens' standard of living. But first, what is labor productivity? It measures the output per hour of work or per worker. It reflects how efficiently labor is utilized to produce goods and services. And this is critical because high productivity growth is essential for increasing wages, improving living standards, and fostering economic expansion. And this is where we see the current problems, because between 2019 and 2024, labor productivity in Canada stagnated at approximately 0% growth annually. This means that despite the technological advancements and workforce development efforts, the economy failed to produce more output per worker hour. Now, Canada's productivity growth had been slow even before 2019, but the period from 2019 to 2024 marked an insane significant plateau, worse than the long-term average of 1 to 1.5 annual productivity growth seen in the past decades. And we see this in other countries that has a similar issue to Canada. What is that? resource-dependent economies. Canada's reliance on natural resource industries like oil, gas, and mining has historically made productivity growth volatile. Resource industries have high capital intensity, but often lower labor productivity growth due to global price fluctuations and limited innovation. So that's when you have to diversify into other types of businesses as a country, right? But businesses in Canada have been slow to adopt new technologies like automation, AI, and advanced manufacturing, which are key drivers of productivity. So they're basically the European Union of the North American continent. And compared to other G7 countries, Canadian companies invest less in technology and research and development, which it's not like that's going to be important in the future of their economy or anything. Again, despite their high immigration rates, mismatches between labor market needs and workers' skills have persisted. Industries requiring high-tech or specialized skills struggle to find qualified workers, limiting innovation and efficiency. And then there's less investment across the board, where we see Canadian firms investing less in machinery, equipment, and intellectual property compared to their international counterparts. This capital investment is critical for equipping workers with the tools needed to increase productivity. And even where there is productivity growth, it's uneven across Canada's provinces. Resource-rich provinces like Alberta and Saskatchewan often face boom and bust cycles, while others like Ontario and Quebec struggle with industrial restructuring. And then, of course, there was good old COVID-19, which disrupted industries across the world, reduced workforce participation, and slowed innovation. And rising global competition and supply chain issues have also impacted productivity growth. So what are the consequences of stagnating productivity? With minimal productivity growth, Canada struggles to expand its GDP at a meaningful pace, and making it harder to compete globally. Plus, productivity is directly linked to wages, so stagnation limits employers' ability to offer higher wages, contributing to cost of living challenges. And internationally, Canada risks falling behind countries with higher productivity growth, such as the United States and Germany, which is one of the only European countries actually doing well right now, potentially reducing foreign investment. Sluggish productivity growth also limits tax revenue growth, which complicates government efforts to fund public services and reduce deficits. I want to give you free money right now. I've partnered with different resources that will literally give you hundreds of dollars the moment you sign up for them. Check out my investing app of choice, Moomoo, where they give you up to 15 free stocks and 8.1% interest on your uninvested cash when you sign up with my link. Do you want a more traditional savings account? Check out where I keep my emergency fund, SoFi, where they'll give you 4.5% on your money and up to $300. Would you rather have automated investing? Sign up for Acorns with my link and you'll get $20 right now instead of the usual $5 you'd get from your friend's referral. You can also sign up for our investing program and get $100 in cash deposited into your Moomoo account. This is the best way to learn what your investing profile looks like and what investing strategies to use based on that. All of this free money is linked in the resources section of the description below, so don't pass up the free money because I'll punch you. And then the second major economic issue Canada is dealing with, housing affordability crisis. Listen, if you're in America right now, like the majority of the audience is, and thinks that we have a housing affordability crisis, you have no idea. The thing is, the escalating housing costs in Canada represent a significant economic and social issue affecting millions of Canadians across income levels and regions. Over the past decade, Canadian housing prices have surged dramatically, particularly in major urban centers like Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal. And as of late 2024, the average home price nationwide exceeded $750,000. For reference, we're around $400,000 here in the United States, and there with urban areas often seeing much higher averages in Canada. And unlike the falling rent in the United States over these past couple years, rent costs have also skyrocketed in Canada, with average monthly rent surpassing $2,200 in many cities. In December 2024, a survey revealed that 43% of Canadians reported heightened financial stress due to housing costs alone. And then 58% of them expressed anxiety about their ability to afford rent or mortgage payments. Many households now spend over 30% of their income on housing, the threshold at which housing is considered unaffordable. In Canada, middle-class families are increasingly priced out of home ownership. Young professionals and first-time home buyers face significant barriers to entering the housing market. Especially vulnerable populations, including low-income families and seniors, are at heightened risk of homelessness. The fact is, there is a mismatch between housing supply and demand, and that is a major contributor to rising costs in Canada. Urban centers have not built enough housing to keep up with population growth, and some experts say particularly affordable housing units. And then there's the immigration thing, which can get politically charged to us in the United States. But listen, this is pretty bipartisan in Canada at this point. Fact is, Canada welcomed over 500,000 immigrants in 2024, which is the highest number in its history. And while immigration actually can support economic growth, it also adds pressure to the housing market, especially when they're not building like in their cities where people live. We see this similar issue here with the strict zoning laws and lengthy permitting processes, which have slowed construction of new housing, particularly high-density developments. And there's local opposition to new developments. We see that here, NIMBYism, and it's further limited housing expansion. Fun fact, if you want rents to fall more than anywhere in the country, like here in Austin, Texas, you have to do what Austin, Texas did unlike anywhere in the country. We built housing! What? Crazy. Who would have thought that would work? Sometimes you just gotta let developers build what the market demands, for fuck's sake, these cities. Now, less of a concern, but still a slight concern in Canada, is speculative buying and investment by foreign entities, which have driven up housing prices, particularly in the metropolitan areas. Now, although policies like foreign buyer taxes have been introduced, their effectiveness kind of remain debatable. Now, for you and I getting the houses in Canada, low interest rates during the COVID-19 pandemic did fuel demand for mortgages, which inflated housing prices. And rising inflation and higher interest rates in 2023 and 2024 have worsened affordability, as mortgage payments now take up a larger share of household income. And then for those who don't want to buy and want to rent instead, the demand for rental properties has outpaced supply, partially due to people delaying home purchases and influx of new immigrants. Gosh, that sounds so politically charged. I swear, it's a different country. It is not the same thing we're talking about here. Don't get all political. It is not that. It is literally a math of units per person situation. Now, we also saw short-term rental properties like Airbnb removing long-term rental units from the market, which now, of course, exacerbates shortages. And of course, now there's no surprise, home ownership rates among young Canadians have plummeted, creating generational inequality and wealth accumulation. Many families remain stuck in rental markets, unable to save for a down payment. And kind of similar to what we're seeing here, and this is horrible, it's tragic, homelessness rates are increasing there, particularly in urban areas, as affordable housing options dwindle. Emergency shelters in cities like Toronto and Vancouver report being at overcapacity. We see this in most developed countries, so it's not surprising that housing wealth is concentrated in the hands of older generations and high-income earners, widening the wealth gap. And that'll happen when we're older too. We're going to be the ones that own it, and those younger are not. Younger generations and low-income earners face increasing financial insecurity in Canada. Plus, high housing costs deter skilled workers from relocating to major cities, creating labor shortages in critical sectors. Businesses face higher operating costs as they struggle to attract and retain these employees. So what's the response from the Trudeau government? Well, federal, provincial, and municipal governments have introduced various measures, including taxes on vacant homes and foreign buyers, subsidies for affordable housing units, policies to streamline zoning and permitting. But obviously this hasn't worked, and critics say that these measures have been insufficient to address the root causes of the crisis. Build housing, you dumb And no, that doesn't mean government housing. It means literally allow the private sector to address the market by getting rid of all your insane zoning. I don't understand how all these cities deal with this. We have proof right here. This is crazy. But the central bank tried to step in as well, and the Bank of Canada raised interest rates to combat inflation, increasing mortgage costs and further straining affordability. And these higher rates have also discouraged new home construction, which, shocking, worsen supply issues. And efforts to build affordable housing units are underway, but face delays due to funding gaps, labor shortages, and local oppositions, because all those projects are always shown to be very effective uses of money and always on time and never over budget and always great, instead of just literally changing the zoning laws. Like, why are we doing this? So yeah, failed state, I don't know. Stagnant state for sure. What's next now? Are we gonna see new leaders come in and actually fix shit? Now the Liberal Party must quickly organize a leadership race to select Justin Trudeau's successor. And this process could take months, leaving the party in kind of a state of flux. Potential candidates include senior figures like former finance minister Chrystia Freeland or other prominent Liberal MPs. And this new leader is going to need to rebrand the party and address its declining popularity by shifting to focus to issues like housing affordability, economic stability, and healthcare. There is an election expected later this year, potentially as early as fall, given the minority government situation. And the Liberal Party is going to face a challenge of rallying support amid low poll numbers and internal divisions. And then there's the Conservative Party, led by Pierre, some French last name that I don't want to mispronounce,
Poilievre,
and holds a strong lead in the polls and is poised to capitalize on Justin Trudeau's resignation. Then there's the New Democratic Party, or NDP, which may attempt to assert itself as a viable alternative to both Liberals and Conservatives, particularly on progressive issues. And the new government, regardless of the party, are going to inherit these unresolved issues like, again, the rising housing costs, the economic inequality, and stagnating productivity, and the strained relations with the United States, especially with Donald Trump's administration planning tariffs on Canadian imports. There's a lot to think about here. This proposal is a 25% tariff, requiring strong diplomacy and trade strategies. Plus, Canadians are still dealing with inflationary pressure, high interest rates, and affordability concerns across the board. But Justin Trudeau's resignation may pave the way for the Liberals to move away from his progressive policies, addressing criticisms of overreach on climate and immigration. And the resignation actually might weaken progressive politics in Canada temporarily, as voters increasingly favor centrist or conservative solutions during economic challenges. And there we might see provinces with conservative-leaning governments like Alberta or Ontario. They may see Justin Trudeau's resignation as an opportunity to push back on federal policies they opposed, such as carbon taxes. The new Liberal leader or government must rebuild public trust, which has eroded under Justin Trudeau, especially regarding housing, immigration, and economic management. But after nearly a decade of Liberal governance, which again is not a political charged name, that is just the name of their party, don't freak out, Canadians might finally seek significant change, increasing the likelihood of a Conservative government, which again is just the name of the party, not the fucking policies that I'm supporting or disagreeing with. It doesn't matter. But either way, are you Canadian? Or do you look up and be like, man, sucks up there. I'm glad I'm not done. Either way, let me know in those comments. I want to read every single one of them. I'll see you in the next one.